All right. Hey everyone, my name is AJ, and today I would like to quickly give a 5-minute overview of doing a distributed tracing using OpenTelemetry and Jaeger. So, okay. So, I mean, several years ago, you had this monolith application, right? And it was fairly easy to diagnose and debug. But nowadays, applications are broken up into many smaller microservices across different cloud environments. And generally, if you want to observe these, it can be broken down into 3 things: logging, metrics, and tracing. Tracing is used to record the activity and observing requests made by application. When you have a distributed fashion of this, it's called a distributed tracing. And by tracing, you get insights such as identifying performance and bottlenecks, finding root cause analysis, and generally understand the interdependencies within each of your application, right? So here I'll show a brief pseudocode on how and where it makes sense to add tracing, and then I'll show you a couple of screenshots as well of how we measure and execute our code. So initially, the code would look something simple. So you would have something like this. In this case, I'm trying to put an object inside a bucket, and you have maybe this inside a function, or this itself will be a function, and eventually it'll get placed inside a bucket you would name, and the object would be inside that, right? So now, if you would want to know, okay, how long did it take to actually put that object in there, right? You would want to trace that. And there are many tools out there. I like to use OpenTelemetry because of its ease of use, and it has a lot of support for other tools as well, which I'll talk about in a second. So once I import OpenTelemetry, you just have to initialize it, which is some basic boiler code to get it up and running. And then you create what is called a span. So think of span as, in layman terms, if you have a function, you want to test that, and then you can have multiple spans as well, right, for multiple functions. So things like adding an object to a bucket, removing, checking if it exists, and so on. And these spans can have multiple attributes as well. So one thing I would like to do is add a function name so that I know from which span this trace is coming from, and also a span event. So within that span, within the function, I want to know where each of the process are going through, right? And you can have multiple span events under each of those spans, right? So the more granular you can go, the more information you would have. And ultimately, so all this is collected in a standardized format. And then in this case, I'm using Jaeger to export it, right? So again, like I said, there are many exporters available, but I use Jaeger. And once I have Jaeger up and running, on the left, you have a couple of options like service, operation, tags, and so on. So you can search based on the span attributes you added. So for instance, I added my MinIO when I initialized it. So that's my service name. And then when I click on Find Trace, I was able to search for the relevant traces that has happened. So here we can look, not only do I have the main span, but if you have noticed, each one has multiple spans as well, like 2 spans, 1 span. So, and you can drill that down even deeper, right? So once, if you check what a bucket exists, you can see below that, okay, that span, how long it took to delete the bucket and create it, and so on. Eventually, you'll see a pattern, right? So that's probably the first time when you ran it. And as you run it multiple times, you see patterns emerge, and then you can sort of base your decisions on that. So is tracing the only option? So tracing is just one part of the observability. So generally when an incident happens, you have more than one metric or more than one log to determine what the issue is to get to the root cause. And that's my time. Thank you.